So now, welcome to the One Flow podcast. I am Jai Gopal, and I am the host and creator of the One Flow. We have different shows or programs on this One Flow, and this particular episode is the inaugural episode of what we call Money Camp. So, welcome to the One Flow Money Camp, and Money Camp is where we talk about money and business and from a spiritual standpoint, from a human standpoint, from an infinite standpoint. Almost everybody out there talks about business from a very practical, three-dimensional standpoint and from perspective. But in this particular show, we're going to kind of weave in some of the teachings, spiritual teachings on money and infinity and how we actually work as human beings. We're electromagnetic energetic beings, and we attract money based on our aura, actually, as opposed to what we think that there's just this kind of everything is all equal. You actually attract prosperity or repel prosperity based on what you can hold in your electromagnetic auric field. But to start at the beginning, what I'd like to talk about is what is money? What really is money? Because many people have no idea what money really is. And to be honest with you, I didn't either. I thought I did. I thought I knew what money was. And then I started kind of looking into it, actually in around 2017, when Bitcoin started coming around in my world. Bitcoin was created in 2009. But when I got a wind of Bitcoin, I started studying, and all this stuff came up in my research about what money actually is. And I was surprised to learn that I didn't really understand money. Now, having been in the teachings of Kundalini Yoga and meditation and all that for many years, I did understand the concept of money as energy, which is what we'll talk about right now. So what is money? Money is the medium of exchange to begin with, right? It's an exchange of what? Your energy. Right? So consider this. You go out and you work. You expend your energy, your life force energy to go and work. And when you do that, you're given something in exchange for that work that represents it. It's a symbol of what it's a value proposition for what you worked, right? You agree to work, to get paid a certain amount for what you work. And so we have to, if we really and truly are going to understand money and how we work as infinite beings, we really need to pull back and take the perspective on money as actually life force energy, because we get obsessed about the object of in and of itself. You know, even like your reaction, if you were to see a $20 bill on the ground, you'd be like, we've objectified money so much because there's a scarcity mindset in and around money. And that's because the money system is a debt-based system. It was created to kind of like siphon your energy and take your money basically through lots of taxation and all of that kind of stuff. We'll get into that later. But it's very helpful if you are interested in changing your situation and prosperity and money and having a better time of it, to look at it as energy. Where do you spend your energy? Money it's a medium of exchange of energy. It's a symbol, right? So it's something that you use to represent your life force energy you spent on work. So you have these dollars, you hand them to somebody and you buy something from them. Like say you go to the bakery and you buy some bread. Well, that baker spent their energy making the bread, and then they're exchanging it for your life force energy that you did whatever you do for work and you got your money from. Okay. So let's look at money as energy, an exchange of energy. But like I was saying, we objectify money as that it's this thing, right? That it's the end all and the be all. Like if the money we give it its own kind of personification, which is a bad thing because it's just a tool. It's like if you were to sit and worship a hammer and be like, oh my God, that hammer, I need that hammer. It's a little absurd. Or if you were to go into the restaurant and like obsess over the menu and be like salivating over the menu and try to chew on the menu is just a representation of what's in the kitchen, of what you can get. Money is just a representation of what your energy, what you can exchange it for. So that's number one, simple. And if more people looked at it like that, I think that the whole perspective on money will change. But now let's look at what money really is. So right now, I'm in the United States. I have dollars. I exchange dollars for my work and energy, and I exchange dollars for other people's products and services which they worked for. Simple, right? But where does this dollar come from, right? The dollar comes essentially from the government, or so we think. Well, here's the truth of the matter, which I was also surprised to learn. In 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was passed, which created the Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve Bank is what's known as a central bank, which it issues the currency. And so what it was a bunch of bankers that got together in secret. And there's a great book. To be honest with you, I haven't read it. I just know about it, but I know in summary of what it's about. And it's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And it's basically it's written, I think, kind of like a novel. So it's really easy to read, but it's about the whole story of how a bunch of very wealthy, but not so nice bankers got together in the year 2013, and went to Jekyll Island, and they made plans for and created the Federal Reserve Bank. So, which is what's known as a central bank. Now, the thing is that our government, according to the Constitution, has the right to issue currency straight from the government, issue currency, and back it by gold and silver reserves. But what happened in 1913 was and this has happened throughout history, into ancient times with Rome and Greece and so on. There's always been a contingent of banker-like people who've understood the concept of money as energy and figured out a way to siphon off of that energy, that medium, siphon off people's energy, basically. So what happened was that central banks throughout history have been created. What a central bank is a bank outside of the government that issues currency in the name of the government, and basically it sort of lends it to the government at a cost, which is absurd when you really think about it, right? So the government has the right and ability to create its own money, currency, and issue it where it's a useful thing that people can use to exchange. But what's happened throughout history is central banks have come in, and these central banks have gotten in between the people and the government. And what they do is, in the case of the Federal Reserve, just let's look at that. The Federal Reserve determines that they're going to create currency and sort of give it to the United States to use, and they determine that monetary policy, and they do it at a cost. So money is created as a debt, and then it's put into circulation, and the United States government sort of owes the interest on that money. So let's say it's 1%, right? So $1 is created and the interest rate is 1%. So for every dollar that is issued, the United States has to pay that 1 cent. But they're only getting, from the creation of it, they're only getting 99 cents. So how can you ever pay back more than what was created? And now here's the other part of it too, is that, do you know what the difference is between currency and money? Many people don't. I certainly didn't. Right? Well, currency has the word current in it, right? Current, it's a flow. It's a flow, and we say that the ocean and the rivers have currents. And what's very interesting about that, which makes our discussions a little bit different than other people's discussions, is that in the human energy system, the second chakra, which is the creative chakra, it's where your sex organs live, it's where your sexuality is represented by the element of water, right? This is this long proven fact throughout history that we have 7 chakras. The second chakra is the water element. And so water has to do with your creativity energetically in your body. And it's very interesting that when you look at all of the terms around banking and money, they all have to do with water, right? So what does a river have on the sides that contain the water? Banks, right? What happens when the river flows? It's a current. What do you use? Currency to buy things, right? So this stuff is not at all by accident. And it's not just a nice, happy coinkydink, okay? It's all planned out to siphon off of your energy, to basically, it's like a parasitic system designed to siphon off your energy, because there's like what I call them, some people call them the Illuminati. I call them some very smart, but not so nice people. That's what they are, right? So they're very smart, not so nice, because they don't give a shit about you, never have, never will, and they understand how things work because they have the information, and they use that to kind of what would you call it? To mess people up, right? So to take advantage of people. This has been going on for a long time, but this is about to all come to an end. It's about to all come to an end because we're in the change of the age and everything is changing. And as I mentioned, but we won't talk about in detail in this particular episode, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is a decentralized type of money, a new type of hard money that can be used from person to person, and you don't need them in between people like the banks and central banks. Okay, so back to the central banks. The central banks create currency out of debt. So they create $1, and then you have to pay back more than that, right? Essentially. So that's why the United States is in perpetual debt. Now, central banks are unnecessary because we have the ability to create currency, and throughout history, there have been presidents who have done that, and Kennedy was one of them. He created the silver. He created silver currency because he knew about this system and was trying to get away from it, and he also got killed for it, amongst other things. But with the central banks are the problem throughout the world, because what they do is they take a system of a good system of creating money for the people to exchange, and then they kind of make a parasitic system around it. Okay, so what we were talking about was the difference between currency and money, right? Currency is an exchange of a flow of that energy, right? So I use I use $1, right, and that is currency. Now, what's the difference, though? We say currency and we say money. What's the difference? Well, money is something, the difference between money and currency is that money actually holds value. It retains value. And currency, if it's based in good, hard money that's backed by something like gold or some kind of asset and has a limited structure. So if $1 represents $1 of gold, then that's hard money that I can use, and that gold is going to retain the value of the money, of the currency. Now, what happened was that, again, these very smart but not so nice people that created the central banks, they understood that if they can control the money of a country, the currency of a nation, then they can control everything. In fact, there's a famous quote by Amsel Rothschild, who's one of the famous, from the 1800s, original Illuminati OGs, who was one of the original central bankers, and his family, the Rothschild family still exists, and those bloodlines are still in effect, and they're still working throughout the world, and they're one of the richest families in the world. But Amsel Rothschild said a very famous quote, which is, "Allow me to control the currency of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws." I think I got that pretty much paraphrased exactly right. I don't care who makes the laws in a country. If I can control the money, I control all the energy of the people, basically. So if I control the money, I control the people. And then when you get into the corrupt aspect of human nature, if you can control the money and in a government, and we can see it rampant throughout our government right now, you can control what's the laws, because you can bribe people and so on. So controlling the money of a country allows you to control all the energy of the people. And very few people look at it like that. So hard money, and actually money is a currency that's backed by something solid like gold. Okay. Now, when a currency is not backed by gold or silver or something limited but that has agreed on value, then that's what's called fiat currency. Now, fiat currency is basically counterfeit money, and it's sanctioned by the government. That the Federal Reserve creates counterfeit money because they just print it. Now, many years ago, you might have called me a crackpot, but we saw this happen in 2020 when the so-called pandemic happened. What we saw was that the Federal Reserve just printed a bunch of money. And there was a 60 Minutes interview where they asked one of the Federal Reserve presidents of one of the banks, it's like, you're devaluing the money if you just print a bunch of it like water. And he said, well, we just print as much as we want. That's basically what he said. So as you can see, if the currency is not backed by something precious like gold or silver or something like Bitcoin, if it's not backed by something or in a limited way, then these central banks tend to just print and print and print. They put money into and take it out of circulation, and then they control the entire economy through interest rates. They determine the interest rates. And so basically, it's not that hard. They want to expand the economy. They lower the interest rates. They want to contract the economy. They raise the interest rate. So money becomes harder to get because they're controlling it. So they can control commerce and all of that stuff by controlling the interest rates. So by expanding and contracting, they control the supply of the money. They control how business is done. It's pretty evil in a way, but it is what it is. It's been that way for a while. Now let's get into what inflation is. So you have fiat money, which is pretty much on its way to being worthless, because what they're doing is, if it's not backed by anything, they just kind of print more and more and more, and little by little by little, it becomes worth less and less and less until it's worthless, right? So that's what we're seeing right now in the American economy and throughout the world, by the way, because pretty much central banks have taken over the entire the currency systems of the entire world. And to be factual here, in 1971, President Nixon took the United States off of the gold standard. And so you can go on and do some research online. And I think there's a website specifically like what happened in 1971.com or something like that. And just, you can find it by using search terms. But basically there's all these charts, and you see what happened is that the value of the dollar has gone down by like 98%. From 1971 to present, which is why it costs so damn much to buy food. Now, here's the game. Everything that's done by the people who control money and control basically the systems that we use is an inversion. And it's very interesting because you might have seen in Buddhist symbolism and Hindu symbolism, there's what looks like a swastika, right? And it's interesting because it freaks people out, because in our modern history, we know about Hitler and Nazi Germany and the swastika, and it represents something very bad. But the swastika is actually reversed. So the one that Hitler used was inverted. It was reversed. The actual symbol is what's known as the sun wheel. And it represents this sort of spiral of going to the God force, so the limited human being going to the God force. And that's what that symbol is supposed to mean. It's supposed to take your mind to going to the God force. What's interesting about that symbol is that if you look at it, and there's actually a meditation, and I've done this meditation with classes, where you trace that symbol, the sun wheel, with your hand, and you meditate on it, and it helps you kind of to get your psyche going towards that God force. So the sun wheel in Buddhist symbolism and in Hindu symbolism, and I've seen it when we were in Egypt, that symbol is also, I saw it all over Egypt. It means, the sun wheel means going towards the God force, going towards infinity. And the interesting thing about it is if you took that sun wheel and you put it on a picture of the Milky Way galaxy, you'll see that the Milky Way galaxy is also moving in that way. So nature is moving towards infinity, and that sun wheel symbol means moving towards infinity. Now invert that, and what do? You go away from it. And so our mind works on symbols, and our subconscious mind works on symbols. So we take that and we're moved by it, what picture's worth 1,000 words. They say that, I think that there's symbols move the mind like 12,000 times faster than words do. So symbols are very important for moving the psyche. And so when you have that inversion of symbols, it takes you away from your infinite nature. And so that's what they've done throughout history with these central banks, is they invert things. And one of the biggest inversions is, and I can't help myself here, by the way, if you take the Chase Bank symbol, which is, it's got these lines like that, it looks like a little sort of beehive. If you take each line and you move it up and out, it basically makes a swastika. And it ain't no accident, ain't no coinkydink like we talked about before. There's no coincidences in all this stuff, okay? There's just too many of them. So the people in control of the money system, and who have been in control of all the major systems that control our lives in the past 2,000 plus years, those people understood this concept of moving towards infinity or moving away from infinity. And so what they did was they created all these symbols to sort of enslave our minds, or put us in this mindset where subconsciously we feel limited and we feel entrapped, enslaved, and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, outwardly in the United States, we're running around, rah, 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 I'm free, we got a free society. But underneath the surface, on a subconscious level, and also in actuality in the working system, we're being kind of enslaved and taxed to death by all of this the system, and it's being done through symbols a lot. So one of the major ways to look at things, so two big takeaways from this podcast is, one, let's look at money from now on and currency as energy, my creative energy. And then remember that all the symbols and all the words that you can go through, and we'll do a whole separate podcast on this, because Jordan Maxwell, he passed away recently, but he's an amazing mind who was the OG, one of the OG conspiracy theorists, but he's a very intelligent guy. And people wrote him off in the beginning, but now he's all of a guy at TV and all that kind of stuff, because all the stuff that he was talking about for 30 plus years was true all along. And he does an amazing, you can find him on YouTube. He does an amazing talk about the whole money and currency system, and how everything having to do with money and currency revolves around water, the water element, and all the terms are there: river banks, currency, current, all that kind of stuff. And then he goes even in deeper, but you can check that out somewhere else. So think like this: everything is being inverted in the system that I'm experiencing out there. But as a human being with an infinite capacity and a mind that can access and translate infinity for me, I can change all of that. And I have an electromagnetic field, as I said at the outset, I have an aura. And this electromagnetic field, like a magnet, electromagnetic, it attracts prosperity. I can attract and I can hold prosperity. Just like if I took a piece of metal and it was a really strong magnet, it would just fly there and be there, right? And in a minute, I'll read you a quote from the Master Yogi Bhajan, where he talks about the aura and the up and the down, how much you penetrate the earth, and then what he calls the east and the west, so the left and the right, how you attract and hold prosperity. We'll talk about that in a moment. But inversion, right? Everything is inverted. And if you participate in that inversion, and you think that this is the end all and be all, like if I look at these dollars and I look at the system and I go, this is a pressurized system and this is all I've got, then then I'm going to be in kind of a poverty mindset and a poverty situation based on what I see out there. And I can also get rich in that system, but it takes a tremendous amount of energy in kind of playing that game in the system. And many people have figured it out and done that. But mostly the system, which the taxation and then, employees working for people and all of that kind of stuff keeps you in a very limited scope, because you can only kind of make so much. But I have the capacity to be very wealthy and infinite and prosperous. If you just look at, I'm going on little tangents here, but this is important. If you just look at nature itself, right? If I plant a garden, if I have like a 1/4 acre in my backyard, I could probably feed most of the neighborhood if I do it right with what I farm in that backyard. Now you take a whole neighborhood and everybody, 1/8 an acre or 1/4 an acre, everybody planted something in their whole neighborhood. You could feed a whole city with that, right? So take this for an example. I have one tomato, right? And I open it up and it's got dozens of seeds in it. I dry those seeds out and I save them. And then I take one seed and I plant it. I might get another, 20 tomatoes or more. I might get 50 tomatoes off of that plant, each one with dozens of seeds in it. And so nature is multiplicative. Nature is infinite. Nature is constantly giving off creative abundance. And it has many, many forms, whatever it is. It could be in my business, whatever. I create something, I grow something. Each one of those things that I grow has the seeds for multiplicative prosperity. Okay. So all of that has been stripped away from your natural inclination to go towards nature and towards that infinite stuff. It's been stripped away through mind programming and teaching you that things are really, really limited. And we're in a system right now that things seem really, really limited. I was in the grocery store yesterday, and that grocery store, I noticed that the cost of the food just went up. I just got a few things and it was like $40. And I got like 3 or 4 things. It wasn't that much. And it's noticeable that inflation is so rampant right now that that things are costing a lot, and it seems very pressurized because it is very pressurized. So it's very easy for me to get stuck in a limitation mindset where I'm stuck in thinking that there's no way out and there's no way to there's no way to get out of this pressure. And that's on purpose right now, believe it or not. It's on purpose to squeeze people to submit to whatever they want you to do. And that's also because breathing down their necks is this decentralized cryptocurrency, which threatens to destroy their whole system. All right. So let's stay on track. We're talking about inversion, right? The sun wheel moving towards God, and the swastika moving away from God. And thereby abundance, the one flow, all of that stuff. But if you look and you see, the control system inverts things. It inverts things, and it also will try to invert your thoughts about them. So instead of thinking that I'm expansive, I'm infinite, and I have an infinite possibility to create and with my energy and hold it in my aura and attract prosperity to myself, attract everything I need and more, super abundance. Instead of that, it'll take me into a mindset of there's not enough fear, contraction, and all that kind of stuff, which is a vicious circle. That contraction and all of that, it makes it worse for me because I stay in this kind of contracted, subcontract place. So now let's get to this thing. We're back at the central bank. They create this money through debt. There'll never be enough money to pay back the debt. The government never can pay back. If I borrowed $1 and I got 99 cents, how am I ever gonna make that extra 1 cent back? Now go into trillions of dollars and you're never gonna be able to pay that back. And the Fed knows that and they don't care. But what this does is I create a currency and then I take it away from anything of value, right? Like gold. Now let me just give you an example before I go on. So here's an example of how gold as the gold standard holds a value. If you were to go back, and I don't know the exact prices here, but I read this example a little while ago on the internet. If you were to go back to like 1955, right? And you would see how much did it cost to buy a tailored men's suit, right? And so the price is somewhere around $28 or something like that. You can look up the exact amounts. You can do this comparison yourself with different goods. But if you go back to like 1955, it would cost me like let's call it $100, right? Because $100 to buy a very nice hand-tailored men's suit. And then if you come forward to today, if I was going to go out and buy a very good tailored men's suit, it would probably cost me a couple of $1,000s, right? Well, if you look at the price of gold in 1955, it's around $100, which is the price of that tailored men's suit. And then if you go to today and it costs about $2,000, that's about the price of gold, give or take, at any given day. So that's how you can see that like those $100 back then were backed by the gold, which was worth $100. And then today, because of this, what they call inflation, the tailored men's suit is now worth the $2,000, which is one gold piece, right? One gold ounce. So that's an example of how precious metal like gold, when it backs currency, it holds the value. So in 1971, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, and in doing so, he caused this sort of hyperinflation to happen, which we're in now, because little by little, the dollar became worth less and less and less. And that's because the Fed just prints dollars, takes it into and out of circulation at will, but it's not backed by anything. So it doesn't hold any value. And then when you come to 2020, and I believe that the Fed printed something about like 41% or 40% more currency than they had in the basically last 50 or 60 years or something like that. So what you have is that the 40% is a lot compared to the entire sort of history of the dollar or the modern history of the dollar. And so what that does is it creates this tremendous, what they call inflation. But again, it's an inversion. Inflation is really devaluation, but they call it inflation. Why? Because it's a symbol and they want to play mind games with you. This is a brilliant inversion with a word game. And they call it inflation because why? When something inflates, it gets bigger, right? That represents the abundance of nature, right? Nature is always giving forth creativity. So it's always getting bigger in a way, right? You look at a field left unattended, it's going to grow all kinds of plants. Animals are going to come in. It creates its own whole ecosystem without anybody having to do anything. It's abundant, right? So I call this inflation. Oh, the dollar's just inflating. So psychologically, I'm thinking, oh yeah, inflation. That's natural. That's what things happen naturally with nature. But no, what's really happening is it's a bait and switch. It's a shell game. What's happening is really that they're using the system to siphon off your energy, and instead inflation is actually devaluation of the dollar. So the dollar is becoming worth less and less and less. And I think as you can look up the facts, but essentially we know it's worth practically nothing at this point. So it's worth like 98% less than what it was when the Fed came into existence in 1913. So a little over 100 and something years, 108 years or so. And here we are, and the dollar is pretty much worth very little. And that's why we see everything costing so much, because if this dollar I have is worth like 98% less, I need more dollars to buy stuff. And that's where we're at right now. But here's the kicker, and I'm going to tell you this about you as a human being. If you can change your mindset and also start to do some things to make yourself energetically larger, then, and this is more than just physical exercise. It involves meditation. It involves changing your mindset about how you relate to the world and nature and that kind of stuff. Basically, like if you do some certain meditations, and there's meditation specifically to bring money, there's meditation specifically to bring prosperity, but ultimately what all those meditations are doing is changing your aura so that you can hold it. Let me read this quote to you from Yogi Bhajan, the master, who said about how your aura affects your ability to hold money. Now, let me preface this, right? So if you think this is some hooey, new agey BS, think about this. Why is it that you've got a guy like Mark Cuban, who's a billionaire, and then you've got your next door neighbor who's, just making $60,000 a year? There's 24 hours in a day, right? There's 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year. The two people equal, right? But one's a billionaire and one's just, might be homeless. One might be just making $60,000 a year. One makes $250,000 a year. What's the difference between all of this, right? If we're all in the same energy, shouldn't we all be billionaires? Well, people have all different kinds of theories about why that is. Oh, this guy works hard, that guy doesn't. This guy's lazy, that guy doesn't. People give a myriad of explanations of why that is. Organization, this guy's disorganized, that guy's super organized, whatever. This guy had a rich father. There's a million different things. But what it comes down to is your energetic configuration, your aura. Another example. How many times have you heard some guy wins the lottery, wins $5 million, and a year and a half later, it's all gone, right? Because he couldn't hold it electromagnetically, right? What it was energy. What is money? Money is the energy. It's a symbol of what I use to my life force on, and I get it in exchange. So some guy, happens to get the numbers right, wins $5 million, 2-3 years later, it's all gone, because he didn't have the life force energy in his aura to hold it. Okay, so this is the quote from the master, because I'll just, from the beginning, when he starts talking about intuition. Because you have the capacity of the intuition, therefore, you have a 9-foot aura on each side, up, down. And so that's a little thing for people who aren't used to talking about this energy stuff. Human beings have an aura that can be up to 9 feet in every direction. That's pretty big, because it's more than 9 feet to this wall over here, and it's certainly more than 9 feet to this wall here, and it's about 9 feet to where the camera is and so on, and behind me much less. So if I sit in a room and 9 feet in every direction and up and down, that's pretty big. That's a big area. Now, most people's aura is a little bit smaller than that, but you can be up to 9 feet in every direction if you're really bright and energetic and everything is balanced. So 9 feet, that's pretty big. And so the bigger that we can make our aura, the more prosperity, energy that we can hold. Also, the more joyful and enjoyable your life will be, because if you're contracted like this, your problems become very big, right? If you're super expanded, it's like sitting on the top of a building. You look down, the people look really, really small. So when you're super expanded and elevated, your problems look very small, right? So the bigger the aura, the better everything is. And nobody's talking about auras. Nobody's talking about electromagnetic fields. And this is why this is the way to look at money. It's a cutting edge, because this is the way people are going to look at it in the future. And in order to get out of these problems that we're in right now, and this is very key, so listen up. The way to get out of the problems that we are in right now is to start thinking of yourself as an energetic being with an aura, and the quality of that aura, and the earth as an energetic vehicle with an energetic field, just like your electromagnetic field, and then the cosmos, our solar system, the entire cosmos, infinity, are all interlocking electromagnetic energy fields. And again, if this is hooey to you, it's proven by quantum physics, period, full stop. Okay. All right. So the quote from the master, did I build it up enough? The suspense? Okay. Because you have the capacity of the intuition, right? If I can build myself strong enough, I can know which way, gut feelings, what to go, what to do, when to buy, when to sell, and what's going to happen in a split second. So I get a feeling and I move the right way. You have the capacity of intuition. Therefore, you have a 9-foot aura on each side, up and down. You're 9 feet deep from the foot, including your heel. Your aura in the ground is measured by the heel strength, not from the toe. And if your aura in the earth is shallow, you are poor. So this is in itself is a really interesting thing in terms of prosperity and how much money you can gain and hold. Your electromagnetic field as a human being has to penetrate the earth's electromagnetic field in order for you to be prosperous, and otherwise you can't be rich. And it's got to penetrate by 25 feet. And it's measured by your heel strength, not your toes. So how solid you are on your heels and standing on the earth, how much you connect to the earth. Now, this is a real key point, because many people never touch the earth. They wear shoes and socks and all these things, and they never walk on the bare earth with their feet. Now you can go on. Thank God we're in the information age. Otherwise, you would just say, this guy's a total weirdo. But the fact of the matter is, there's all kinds of stuff that I've seen lately where people have done tests, and that walking on the earth for a human being actually changes the viscosity and the quality of the blood and the blood flow. So walking on the earth, it changes your blood flow, it changes your whole electromagnetic field, and it makes you prosperous. So I'm curious about this idea about heel strength. And this is the way it is with the teachings. When you explore these teachings, when masters speak, they say some things, but it's many layered. And so I want to go into that a lot more, this idea of the heel strength. So if your aura in the earth is shallow, you are poor. You cannot become rich. And here he says, I can give you the federal bank and everything. Money shall not be with you. Money is only measured by the depth of your auric root into the earth. Now think about that for a second, right? It's like you're, as a human being, you're on the earth, and you're planting your seeds, whatever your projection is, whatever direction you want to go into. You want to start this business and stuff like that. It's Mother Earth, right? If I take those tomato seeds, like I talked about, I plant them in the earth, and they take water and they start to sprout, and then the earth, they take the nutrients and they grow. That's not so different from us. We need the sun. The sun, it's been proven, creates mitochondria, which helps with the rhythms of the body, the circadian rhythms, and it makes you healthy. So I need the sun, I need the earth. These things everything is interconnected, and we have to consider that. So we don't have to make it some big hooey thing, but go walk on the beach with bare feet a couple times a week or whatever. Take your shoes and walk out in the backyard. Make it a point, connect to nature, because nature is abundant. Nature is you, and it'll give you energy. And that's important stuff. I mean, a lot of people like to go out and go, mountain bike and get out in nature. So many people, they like to go camping and get drunk, whatever, barbecue and drunk and overeat and that kind of stuff. But is that really connecting with nature? I mean, connecting with nature is like getting out there energetically and making the transfer. So keep that in mind. Go swimming, go all that stuff. So, all right. So you're continuing on. Your east aura towards the east, half of the side of the east, it will give you how to grab opportunity. So let's call it this side. Let's call it the left side here. So how to grab opportunity, right? So the opportunity will come from, well, maybe he means the right side. I'm gonna have to explore that more. But anyway, so one side, to be continued. One side you attract, I believe it's with the right side, the east, let's call it this. Let's say we're facing north. The east is how you attract the opportunity and how you should grab the opportunity. Your aura towards the west gives you the strength how to produce impossibility, right? So in other words, you attract the opportunity here, you are able to process it and do the impossible and integrate it over here. So your aura towards the west gives you strength how to produce impossibility. Your aura on the top will give you the height, how big and how you can go. So your aura up here is, you create a business, how big, how that business has its own aura, actually, believe it or not. It's its own entity. But you, as someone who is connecting to and attaining prosperity, how high your aura goes up to the top is how high you can go in your own prosperity. All right, so just consider that. We have to go into the deep of this, because there's a few times when he taught it, and it's interesting here he's talking about it from east and west. So basically one side you attract the opportunity, which is the right side. The left side is how you can hold it. Okay. And if I got that wrong, please feel free to correct me if you've seen it and back it up with a quote from the teachings. But if I remember correctly, it's the right side that you pull it in. It's the left side that you hold it. Above is how high you can go. And if rooted in the earth is gives you the foundation to hold that prosperity and solid foundation. You can build more and more and more. Okay, so that's that. We should probably try to wrap this up here. But what we covered here today is that money is energy and how money works. So, and that the system we're in right now is inverted. But if you're looking to get into a better situation, if you're having troubles with money right now, the first thing that you can do is start to consider that you might have a lot of energy, but your mind is caught in an inverted system, which is trained you to look at things in a very limited way. In other words, you're not using your full capacity. And if you can start to use your creativity and your joy and enjoy what's going on, then you can come up with very creative ways to get beyond any money problems that you might have. Now, if this was 20, 30, 50 years ago, this advice wouldn't be as valid because we were in a kind of hierarchical control system of the Piscean age back then. But what we have now is tremendous opportunity all over the place. Just go watch a Gary Vee video, man. He'll tell you how opportunity is just infinite right now. If you can make content and put it on social media, you pick one thing that you can sell. And he constantly talks about going to garage sales. He gets off on going to garage sales and finding comic books and baseball cards. And then, that people are selling for 25 cents and they're worth $25. And he's always got, examples of people who have taken his advice and made tons of money. What we have now is we have this internet, which keeps us completely connected all over the world. Consider this: if you're having challenges with money, consider like if you're young, even if you're old, if you have a lot of energy, but you're having troubles with money, you just need to redirect that energy and let it go outward instead of being inverted. And so consider this: we have at our fingertips here, almost everybody in the Western world, some people don't, but most people in the world, even that don't have bank accounts, have these phones. And that's really important because with this phone and an internet connection, which even if I can't afford internet connection, I can go to myriad cafes all over the world and get internet, and I can do commerce. I can do business with people all over the world. So I don't think it's a stretch that you could say that opportunity is everywhere. The social media networks where I can put stuff out. If I have whatever it is that I do or I can do, I can put it out there and I can connect with people. And there's that, I forget who came up with this, but it's I think one of the names for it is the long tail theory or something like that. But it's, let's call it 1,000 loyal fans. So if whatever you do, consider this, there are close to 8 billion people on the planet right now. There's 7.4 billion people, or whatever it is. That's 7,000 million. Let's call it 7 billion. So 7.4 billion. That's 7,400 million, right? So you take a million and you multiply that by 7,400 and you get 7.4 billion. That's how many people are on this planet, right? And there's the 1,000 loyal fans theory, which is if I can gather 1,000 loyal fans. Let's say I'm a musician and I'm with all of the digital capability, I can make my own album and put it out. I put it on YouTube. I can put it on Spotify. I can put it anywhere I want. I can be my own music producer, which you couldn't do until recent times. But if I have 1,000 loyal fans who absolutely love my music, they love the style, I got 1,000 loyal fans out of 7.4 billion people in the world. You can get 1,000 people just by being yourself and connecting, right? Some people have 1 million, some people have 10,000. But if I can, the idea is if I can get 1,000 loyal fans who really dig my stuff, right? Then I put out $100 worth of stuff in a year with merch and an album, or I put out one album and I have merch on my site. And every time I put something out each year, I got like $100 worth of stuff. There's 1,000 people who just love my stuff and will buy it. That's $100,000 a year, right? Minus whatever it costs with the merch and all that kind of stuff. Let's say you're like a 60% margin, well, with the digital music, it might be more. But you can take home $60,000, $75,000 a year in a digital world if you can just get 1,000 loyal fans. So whatever it is that you can do it. And there's like no barrier to entry. I mean, there's tons of stories of guys, like one guy was homeless and he couldn't even afford to get a phone. And he finally got enough money to get a phone, and he was working from the street and he got a phone, and he went and he bought some stuff and resold it. And then he did that again, and he did it again, and he did it again. We're in a time where there's absolutely no limits to what you and your creativity can do, because you can connect to people. And there's a lot of people that are stuck in a mindset where they think that everything is so limited because they've been trained that way. But really, it's just going to continue to get better and better and better. And then when we talk about Bitcoin, which we will in the next episode, and cryptocurrency, then you really get excited about the world that we're going to be moving into, which is decentralized, and where you and I, through these phones, can just I can send some money to you and you can send some money to me, and there's going to be no more PayPal or bank in between taking 2.7%, 3%, and all the other fees and bank fees and all that stuff. That's all going to go away. I mean, reluctantly, they're letting it go away. But keep in mind, your energy is what attracts prosperity to you. Your energy is how you can gain and hold money. Money is a symbol, a medium of exchange for that energy that you expend. So how do you get rich? How do you really get rich? How do you really get prosperous? Increase your energy field. Take good care of this vehicle, this infinite temple, this body of yours. Eat healthy, get exercise, do meditation and yoga. I teach Kundalini yoga and meditation, as you can see if you look in the on the socials and my website. The One Flow podcast is brought to you by jaigopalyoga.com, and you can go there and you do classes and so on. But do meditation, yoga, and things that expand your aura, and start to get the right information and understand how things work, and change how you view the world in terms of energy. So everything is energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes forms. That's a really key thing in considering everything we've just talked about here today, right? We've talked about these central banks and how they invert things to kind of sort of trap you and take your energy, which is money. But energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes form. It's infinite, right? The law of conservation of energy, which they've also inverted if you go into the science. But energy doesn't decrease. It doesn't go away. You don't lose energy. Energy is just, it's infinite in and of itself, and it just changes forms. So if I want to be prosperous, I need to get more energy into this container, this aura, and then I need to change my mindset and reprogram my mind to perceive everything as infinite opportunity. Even, losing that money over here, or my car getting totaled, or this or that. I recognize that if I take the philosophy that everything is moving me in a better direction, that the universe is moving me in a positive direction, even with negative events, then I start to become more prosperous, because I look at the opportunity in every situation. And there's always two sides to every coin. There's always an opportunity in every situation. Okay, so thanks for joining us in this episode, the inaugural episode of Money Camp, where we explored how money works, and how central banks work, how money is created, and so on. Very simple start for most people, but there's a lot of people that don't even know this. So this is the first step in a series of stuff that we're going to talk about on how to become more prosperous and how to enjoy what you have. All right, thank you very much. Please like the video if you liked it, like it and subscribe where you can. This podcast is available on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but we're also on YouTube and all the socials. So wherever you hang out, LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or any of these places, just be sure to find us. The links will be in the spaces below. And like, subscribe, review, and give us some love so that other people can find us, and then you can find us again. All right, thank you very much. This has been the One Flow podcast. I am Jai Gopal, and this is Money Camp. Until next time, Sat Nam.